Making radio great again. Mirejovsky here, your host, live and local from beautiful downtown Las Vegas. Friends, we've got a lot to cover today. I don't want to delay one moment. I was on Real America's Voice a few minutes ago with Steve Gruber. We were talking before I went on air. Steve asks me during the commercial break about Las Vegas. And I have to admit here, little behind the scenes intrigue. I may have snapped a little. I wasn't rude. I just got a little testy because Steve asks me, right? What's going on there in Vegas? You guys are going to have to fix some things. Vegas is dying. And my response was, we're doing a lot better, thank you, than San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, just to name a few. And that's really where I am with this, folks. Look at what's going on in Washington, D.C., all right? Let's get back into the macro view of the situation with great American cities, which I consider Vegas to be one of. I'm not saying there aren't problems in Las Vegas. I'm just saying that there are far greater problems, bigger, more existential issues going on in many of America's cities that have been mismanaged now for decades, where the Democrats have run these great American cities into the ground. What we see Trump doing in Washington, D.C., in our nation's capital, is a proof of concept that the deterioration of American life, as we know it, is reversible. When I see images of the crackdown of the FBI, the Secret Service, the U.S. Marshals, DHS, and other law enforcement agencies federalized, taking over the streets of the District of Columbia and restoring order, picking up crackheads, arresting drug dealers, going after illegal immigrants, patrolling areas that had mere weeks ago been overrun by some, well, less than savory characters. Now cleared it out, and guess what? Life is returning. You know, my fundamental, see, this is exactly right. So many American cities besides Vegas have a far bigger problem because they are run by the very people that have brought them basically to their knees. The frustrating thing, look, look at the entire point of the Democratic Party is they will go into a place. They'll go into San Francisco. They will ticket you for the smallest of infraction. You park your car. You set the meter. You to 1 hour. You come back, hour and 15. The cop was there. You've got a ticket. Why? Because, well, it's revenue and, you're not a protected class. You're a productive citizen. You don't get any special benefits from the Democrats. But then a block away, hell, right next to your car that's getting ticketed, is a guy with enough fentanyl in his system to kill the entire second grade at your kid's school. And what happens to him? Chances of him having contraband, chances of one of the 3 or 4 bicycles that he has leaned up against the fence that they're stolen is about 99.5%. A cop just walks by that. That person has a special dispensation from the authorities to keep doing whatever it is that he's doing. And that is messed up. These Democrat-run cities overregulate the lawful and tolerate the lawless. This is what they do. You remember the guy, this was such a sad story in the moment that it happened because I felt a tremendous amount of sympathy to him. A guy named Collier Gwynn. Does that name ring a bell for any of you? He's a 70-year-old man. He owns a gallery in San Francisco, somewhere close to Jackson Square, if you are familiar with the city. And in early January of 2023, he gets arrested. Why? Because in front of his business, for weeks and for months, a single homeless woman, a nasty, gross, drug-addled street urchin, defecates day in and day out right in front of the front doorstep to his art gallery. And what does he do? He hoses her. He's washed. Of course he has a hose. He's got poop on his doorstep, every day. So he's got there with his hose. He hoses down the sidewalk and kind of sprays over at the woman. It's caught on tape. The video goes viral. I remember I saw the video and I thought, good for him. I've admittedly done much worse to some of the troublemaking homeless in and around my business in downtown Las Vegas. Although in Vegas, and we get treated a little bit differently here as business owners than they do in San Francisco. The guy was arrested. I think he had to do 35 hours of community service, was facing a misdemeanor battery charge. And the point is that the woman who literally would drop her pants and leave her things, her material on the sidewalk. I'm trying to, maybe it's too gross. Nothing happened to her. This is the anarcho-tyranny of the left. And I'll tell you, there are stories now coming out of San Diego, a beautiful city, right? San Diego has the best weather of any place in the United States. Without question, it is literally perfect. It actually notably better, more dry, more mild temps than you get in Orange County, for example, or LA. So San Diego is quite literally, when it comes to weather, climate, location, a paradise. The Democrats have completely destroyed this place. There are now people going around once bustling areas where store after store, business after business, bars, restaurants closing down one after another. And yet every time I pop open the news, somebody's like, well, Vegas is dying. Oh my gosh, Vegas is going. What's going to happen, Sam? Vegas, we don't have shuttered businesses. I'm here. I'm downtown. I'm in Vegas. I live here. Yes, visitorship is down. Yes, there are fewer people coming. Yes, the economy has taken a bite out of some people. But there's no question that there are other places in this beautiful country of ours that are suffering far more. And they're suffering because gradually over time, when you tolerate lawlessness, when you tolerate drug addiction, when you tolerate homeless encampments, people doing their business, relieving themselves right in the streets, in the sidewalks, in front of elementary schools, in front of once swanky bars, those areas will get blighted. And businesses begin to pull out. What's the point of spending $500 on a beautiful Michelin-starred dinner in San Francisco when you walk out and see a guy laying in the ground with a hypodermic needle sticking out of his arm? And before you tell me, oh, Sam, that's, exaggeration. I had that happen to me with my kids. This wasn't even now. That was already 4 or 5 years ago. These things have been spiraling now for years. And in the midst of this, one of the most heinous perpetrators of this Democrat-led blight machine, Gavin Newsom, enters the fray as some sort of standard bearer for the Democratic Party, intent, hell-bent on becoming the Democrats' nominee for president in 2028. And his posts about how great California is are delusional. It's utter and total madness. And I have to say this, gosh forbid that we give Gavin Newsom the opportunity to do to America what he did to San Francisco, to California, every place he's ever governed. It's just a complete and total madness. Quick break. I will be back in a moment. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Once upon a time, frankly, not even that long ago, we had an auto industry in Detroit. We had steel in Pittsburgh, shipping in Baltimore. We had the movie industry thriving in LA. Now, under the Democrats, even Silicon Valley is losing steam. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. It's the parasitic nature of liberalism that is to blame. They come into a place that is built via productivity, read capitalism, and go, aha, here we go. We can tax it, we can fine it, we can regulate it, we can build our power on this because of the immense wealth present. And that's why you get even some otherwise idiotic and lefty Hollywood types going on podcasts these days talking about how, oh, you can't even make a movie in LA anymore. It's so expensive. And we're doing everything down in Georgia or in Ireland or in the Czech Republic. Yes, a number of movies are made in Prague at the Barrandov Studios. Anyway, all because why? I mean, everybody's base or was based for years in LA. It was the cost of it. It was the rapaciousness of the Democrat bureaucracy. So, it drove it out. And it's going to be a fascinating side note as we get closer to the election in New York City, where Zohran Mamdani continues to gain strength. I think Cuomo, I haven't really caught up on this in a while. Cuomo, the Democrat, the other Democrat, who I think is running as an independent in the race, just not landing any big punches. And he's an odious character, too. Then you've got the Republican Curtis Sliwa, who's, well, I mean, there's 5 Republicans, I think, in New York City. They all know each other. There's a secret handshake, but they're not going to move the needle when it comes to elections. So Curtis Sliwa was out. And then, you've got Eric Adams, the incumbent mayor who, I said this at the time when he was running originally. The guy's dirty. He is. He's just crooked as a dog's hind leg. And it is what it is. And there's another story today in the New York Post about a close associate of his being, again, caught up in something and under investigation for some illicit activity. So this is just not going well. So what's going to happen? Zohran Mamdani is going to become the Democratic Socialist mayor of New York, and you're going to watch what is left of the city that ought to be the crown jewel of the United States of America, that was, up until this point, a bastion of conservatism. And I mean that, you walk around the city, I understand everybody there is liberal, but hear me out. Every building you look at, every gorgeous thing there, every edifice was built by capitalists. What has the new New York really produced in terms of, shocking beauty? Not a whole lot, okay? Yet everywhere you look, museums, given as testamentary gifts created by, billionaires or millionaires in the past. Some of the greatest living Americans of their time built that place. And the parasitic libs that have taken it over have just gradually weakened it and eroded it and torn it down. So, it's going to get even worse is my point under Mamdani. And it matters. I am not, folks, a George Will aligned conservative Republican. If you don't know, George Will, who is, an intellectual guy, right? He's, you know who George Will is. He went out, he did a news show. He said, oh, yeah, let Zohran Mamdani win. Let them win. Let New York burn. I don't have that same thought. And I know a number of younger conservatives agree with me on this. It doesn't work. And you know why it doesn't work? It doesn't work because, for example, of the crash that we talked about yesterday in Florida. You have in Florida a state that is perfectly run. Perfectly run. Governor DeSantis has that place locked down. They don't give licenses to illegals. They don't, play around with crime. They don't put up with a lot. But the state of California, the state of Washington gives to some guy, some illegal immigrant from India, a driver's license, a commercial driver's license. He gets one in Washington. He gets a second temporary permit in California. And this moron goes to Florida because guess what? You can drive from state to state, takes the benefits given to him by these lib-run states, and goes and pulls a boneheaded move because he can't even speak English, didn't know how to read any signs, and killed 3 people. 3 people, innocent people, are dead because Democrats have allowed someone wholly unqualified to have a commercial permit. So, I know, look, I left California, admittedly. I bailed on the state of California where I grew up, where I'd spent a majority of my life because I didn't like how it was run. And I didn't see a lot of hope of things changing. But what they do harms us here in Vegas. How many criminals who do really bad things here in Las Vegas are from California? Have been let out over and over and over again from let off from what ought to have been, significant terms, long terms in prison, are released, and they come to Vegas and they kill somebody. There's a story like that all the time. We're only 270 miles away after all. I understand we're a big country. If you think we can just allow New York to fall to Mamdani, and that, good for them. If the New Yorkers want it, they get a taste of some of their, the poisonous fruit of their insane leftist socialist tree. Okay, but it's going to affect us all. And the crazy thing is, here's what's going to be. I'll say, here's the silver lining. This, just as this is happening in New York, Trump is going to be full bore, full steam out there, cleaning up every city that he decides to turn his attention to. In D.C., he has the most right to do so. Remember, in L.A., the National Guard could only really be used to protect federal buildings, and they're limited in their scope of operation. D.C. is under the jurisdiction of Congress. The president has executive power there that he doesn't have elsewhere. And what you're going to see here is Trump demonstrate to the country what a cleanup of a once nearly dead, derelict city looks like, top to bottom. And by the way, that includes the nonsense crap that they put out there in the Smithsonian, all the America-hating, propaganda that we have allowed the leftists to put out there. We elect Republicans. We've elected Bush. We elected Reagan. that the libs still maintained control. Not any longer. Trump is not letting that happen. All right, some local DC updates when we come back. This is such a great story. Trust me, folks. Stay tuned. All right, I'm here. Don't worry. Sam Mirejovsky behind the What's Right microphone, your neurotypical, heteronormative talk show host. Okay. I always have to disclose this. Standard OEM pronouns here on the program. It's original equipment by the manufacturer. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. I just saw this. Frank Luntz reposted it. I'm glad he put this out there into circulation because the New York Times dropped a piece here that ought to scare the bejesus out of every Democrat operative out there in the country. The change of share of Democrat voters out of the 30 states that track voter registration movements found that between 2020 and 2024, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single one of those states. They are down in Nevada. They're down in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Kentucky, even in the great state of Maine. Down, looking at these arrows, I think the bigger the arrow, the longer the arrow, the more decline there was. So biggest declines here based on the arrows are Nevada, Florida, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Rhode Island. But, Pennsylvania's at the New York State. So anyway, just pointing this out, abysmal time to be a Democrat. And certainly doing more of the stuff that has been repugnant to voters over the last 4 years will not win these voters back. I don't see that. By the way, why are Democrats giving the ick to Americans across the country? See, I think the tolerance of crime, of blight, of filth, if we're going to talk about cities coming apart and deteriorating, I think that's a huge part of it, no? I think people recognize that the anti-police, defund the police, let the criminals take over the neighborhood platform of the Democratic Party is just nonsense. Doesn't add up. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it, of course, is that the Democrat agenda does not help people do better for themselves. There still are more people in the society, and I'm grateful for this, by the way, more people in society that want to be self-reliant, produce for themselves, be independent, and succeed than there are people who just want to mooch off the state. And so a system, a political party, advocating for a system where everybody's a taker in some form or another, be it via benefits handed out through DEI, affirmative action, and other, progressive means, or simply through handouts, is not something that people want. At the same time, flooding the market with a bunch of cheap labor when you're trying to build up wages for working class Americans was, in a word, retarded. So here we are. Okay, Democratic Party in the toilet. I promised you some reactions from the District of Columbia. These continue to come in on an hourly basis. I can't play them all, but this is I'm loving these videos these interviews, these posts that are being put up, because ordinary residents in the District of Columbia are elated that Trump has cleaned things up. Long overdue. And this is something that Muriel Bowser, the Democratic City Council, all these Democrat clowns, something they could have done years ago.
Do you not understand that this is what the residents want? I'm not talking about the bougie upper echelons, bougie blacks. I'm talking about the everyday grandmas that have to deal with these homeless people peeing and pooping on their steps, and then they have to clean it up. They don't feel safe when they walk into their neighborhood. The gangs and the dope boys are just standing around the corner, do you not understand this is what they want? I remember working with a community leader, and somebody had just gotten shot. This is like 5 years ago. And I remember her praying, and she said, Crystal, we're gonna have to invoke the National Guard. And that was so foreign to me. Now I understand the shit. These people are helpless. And I'm not talking about the bougie black people that live in their gated communities with their new bills. I'm talking about the everyday grandmothers, and I'm so glad that President Trump cares about them.
I'm sorry. This is a new era in our political world here in America. I never saw videos like this from African Americans living in poor neighborhoods, extolling the virtues of George W. Bush. Robbie, do you remember any well, saw some different stuff as it related to Katrina, which of course was deeply unfair, but I mean, Trump's just winning people over with this. Now, a business owner, PBS News Hour with Abdullah Salim, went and found a gym owner in D.C. And so this guy talking about this. Okay, well, here's what they were interviewing. The gym owner's like all for police presence downtown.
Abdullah Salim runs this boxing gym in the Trinidad neighborhood where he mentors local teens.
We need order in our city. If you don't have no order, you ain't got no city.
He hasn't seen an increased presence in his neighborhood either, but he says he supports what the president is doing.
I've been seeing a lot of atrocity, a lot of murders, a lot of innocent children, a lot of innocent babies, and there's nothing done about it.
Nothing done about it. Murder. Endless violence. Nothing was done about it. But he's supportive of what the president is doing. This is on PBS. You want talk about winning hearts and minds, talking about about Trump doing what's right for ordinary Americans. Finally, the bottom quartile of DC feels seen, feels heard. So who are the people out there protesting against this? I got some flack via email when I had I mentioned that these protesters were all white. Well, Sam's was just racist. You can't, it's just tasteless for you to point this out. What do you mean? In a city that's, what is it, 40% black, maybe something like that? Certainly 50%, more than 50% minority. Washington, D.C., the entire District of Columbia. Wait, you would expect to see, if it was a genuine protest that was unifying the community, you would expect to see a cross-section of that community. I mean, it just goes to show you, but you have 200 people gathered somewhere, some proportionality. None of that existed. And so the best part is that, well, the Union Station, this is in D.C., I remember going there as a kid, and it was pretty safe. Now it had devolved into a bit of a hellhole, and now it's getting cleaned out. And so earlier today, J.D. Vance went with Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth down to check it out. And the protesters, this is great, by the way, there are these scenes where Hegseth and Vance, the vice president, are walking in. And there's the protesters are yelling and shouting at them, Nazi and bigot. All the usual the usual pleasantries. And Vance just points and laughs at them. Okay, he just walks, he's pointing and laughing, and he's pointing at, and then Hegseth points and laughs. They're taking the mick at him, which is the way it ought to be. But anyway, it gets put a camera in front of Vance's face, and they ask him about this, and they say, wait, this is Vance's response here. This is just absolutely so great.
The entire world. Let's free Washington, D.C. so that young families can walk around and feel safe and secure. That's what we're trying to free D.C. from. And as Stephen said, it's kind of bizarre that we have a bunch of old, primarily white people who are out there protesting the policies that keep people safe when they've never felt danger in their entire lives.
Yeah, bingo. By the way, Steve Miller gave some great comments right before this. I got to tell, Cernovich characterized this as basically unapologetic male energy. That we're just done unapologizing for anything. No qualifications, no niceties, just going straight at the jugular, and we're here to take care of business. Stephen Miller doing exactly that just moments ago.
For too long, 99% of this city has been terrorized by 1% of this city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots, they have no connections to the city, they have no families they're raising in this city, they have no one that they're sending to school in this city, they have no jobs in this city, they have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today. Because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there. We are not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address another thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. And by the way, most of the citizens who live in Washington, D.C. are black. This is not a city that has had any safety for its black citizens for generations. And President Trump is the one who is fixing that with the support of the Metropolitan Police Department, the support of the National Guard, and our federal law enforcement officers. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
Bingo. I know it's tough to hear because the protesters in the background. We're going to ignore these stupid white hippies and only go home and protest. Now they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C. This is the way. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. This hour of the program brought to you by the only personal injury law firm to trust, Sam & Ash Injury Law, offices in Nevada and California, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. I like it. I like that Vance is just making fun of the protesters. You got to do this. Careful, though. These people bite. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. I am just noticing something that I've wanted to mention. And Robbie, careful. And we didn't talk about this, but I want to bring it up because there's a lot of anger out there that worries me. What do I mean by this? Well, here on the What's Right show, okay, I say this program is about common sense conservatism. And so really a lot of what I say is not really that controversial. But if you were to play 10 minutes of this program to a MS Now, formerly MSNBC, programmed liberal, they would begin to suffer spontaneous seizures. they would go into full-blown conniption fits. They are so far wound up that any challenge to their orthodoxy, to their programming, causes a short circuit. And so I'm seeing more and more, and I don't know if this is my algorithm online or whatnot. I'm not experiencing it so much in my personal life, but well, yes, I am actually. Yeah. On reflection, I am. People reaching out to me, friends on social media, people I know, who are getting very upset with me over my political stance, my political position. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of really almost violence or near violence from angry anti-Trumpers. And it's concerning. I saw it. We don't know any details about it, right? I sent you that story. Greta Van Susteren had her makeup artist over at Newsmax was murdered over the weekend. Oh, the show's based in D.C. I thought, oh, it's a crime in D.C. I know something about, Newsmax and their operation. I was thinking where it was, and it started going through my mind what happened. And then I found a news story this morning where it was her son that killed her, an adult son. Now, it could be all sorts of things, right? But where my mind went first, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but where my mind went first is mom works for a conservative news channel. Mom probably is pretty conservative. Hearing what I've heard about this lady sounds like she was. And you've got these kids, 20 years old, 30 years old, who are yelling at their parents. They've stopped communicating with their parents because their parents voted for Trump. There are stories like that I'm hearing. Now, it's not happening in my family because my parents raised my sister and I the right way. And my sister and I, in turn, are raising our kids to be properly educated. And so, we're not suffering any issues like this in our family, but I did have a lot of relatives of ours in Europe and the Czech Republic are even more mind programmed than the libs here, because all they really get is regurgitated, the front page of the New York Times. And they are convinced that, my dad and I and our whole family were monsters because we support Trump. And it's so divorced from reality. And I had this thought. Maybe I'm not doing this very artfully. I'm seeing all these people, the veins bulging in the throat and yelling, and how can you wear that hat? How can you wear that red hat? And it just reminds me, these are the same people that were yelling at you. How dare you not wear a mask? You're killing people. These are the same people that were yelling at you to get vaccinated. And then when you refused, these were the people that told you they hoped you'd die. It happened. 2021 is not that long ago. Are we supposed to forget that? I have come to the conclusion that there is not an insignificant portion of the left globally, but particularly here in the U.S., that is almost it's deranged. It completely deranged. These people had their minds broken. And I fault the media. I fault the Democratic Party. Their fight to end Donald Trump wasn't limited to a fair political combat. The Democrats didn't just say, "Okay, we're gonna fight a fair and square with Trump. We're just he's got his ideas. We disagree with him. He's terribly rude. We're gonna Michelle Obama, they go low, we go high." She didn't go high. They cheated. They lied. They slandered. They brutalized. I'm using that word very specifically. Brutalized our country just to score points with Trump. And the problem is there's a lot of people out there who are just dumb, who are emotional, who don't read, who get their news from, snippets off CNN, who read maybe a line or two from the New York Times. And they've just been programmed. And now they're wound up and they're filled with hate. They don't understand how it is that Trump won twice, maybe 3 times. They don't get what's happening in the country. They live isolated in a little bubble. These people are dangerous. My advice is stay the hell away from them. Okay, top of the hour, back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. More of the What's Right show when we come back. Adam Schiff, yeah, this is big. He's set up a legal defense fund, apparently aware that the Trump administration has him in their sights. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Here, Monday through Friday, behind the What's Right microphone. This is... All right, so this is... I'm not surprised by this. By the way, I think Schiff realizes that he has an open and shut case against him and that this is going to go the distance. Meaning it's going to go to court. And if it's going to go to court, he'll need tens of thousands, likely hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight the allegations. By the way, he's going to have some company, and not just from Letitia James. The big news today, if you've maybe missed it, is that a board of governor of the Federal Reserve, appointed back in 2022, a lady by the name of Lisa Cook, just got caught doing something very similar to Mr. Schiff and Ms. James. Cook, who is a professor and an economist, appointed to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors by none other than Joe Biden, apparently got 2 mortgages in 2 weeks, listed them both as primary residences. One home was in Michigan. A second home, a condominium, was in Atlanta. And there's some sleuthing seems to show that the condo in Atlanta was purchased and then immediately put up for lease. So it was an investment property, in other words. Trump today demanded that Cook resign. And Bill Pulte, who is the HUD chair, of course, these federal mortgages are under his jurisdiction. So Pulte's out there saying that this is really, really bad. And he believes this gives Trump grounds to terminate Cook for cause. Now, remember, I think her term expires in 2036, something like that. It goes for a long time. And she is a anti-Trumper on the Federal Reserve Board. Remember, Trump is wants to compel the Fed to drop interest rates. It is desperately necessary to keep the economy from cratering, is my opinion. Now, Trump is doing pressure on Powell, who is likely, in my opinion, he may very well face, I'll put it this way, he may very well face an investigation for some of the cost overruns for the remodel of the Federal Reserve Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C. But this is far more open and shut. And, I can't help but think that the Democrats just shot themselves in the foot. They went after Trump with all these ticky-tack things. They went after him with what was it, Mar-a-Lago? Oh, it's not worth $600 million. It's only worth $18 million. All right? And by the way, value for a one-of-a-kind property, I always want to point this out, just a little asterisk. Because the liberals, the Democrats, and their willing helpers in the media have done a lot to talk about how, well, Trump should sit this one out because he himself was found guilty of mortgage fraud. Let me educate you on something, folks. That was such a nonsense case. And I'll tell you one main reason for that. When you give a value, even under penalty of perjury, for a completely unique standalone property like Mar-a-Lago is, that number is highly subjective. Well, you can, I mean, there's a case can be made. Trump made a case in court, and it was a good case. He didn't win on it because, of course, he had a bunch of angry Democrats in the room. But it was a good case for him. A value in a property, I mean, who knows what Mar-a-Lago is worth? It could be worth more even than what he put down on paper. And the bank vetted it, et cetera, et cetera. But when you apply for a loan and claim that your property is your permanent residence or your primary residence, that's something very technical. That's not gray area. It either is your primary residence, you either live there or you don't. You either live in Michigan at the house in Michigan or you live in the condo in Atlanta. You can't have two primary residences. And the reason that Schiff and James and now Lisa Cook are getting themselves into a bit of a trouble here is because you get a better deal on a mortgage. You have more loan programs available to you at better rates for your primary residence. And that you don't have that, right, with a secondary or investment property. That's all it is. I mean, that's the reason behind it. Now, back to the chickens coming home to roost. The lawfare, the Democrats' lawfare against Trump, going after him for all this, take anything they could find, really, ultimately resulted in what? Now Trump has entire teams of people pouring through any and every bit of information that the federal government possesses about his sworn enemies. There is not a single file that won't be cracked open, a single document that won't be examined. There's nothing, no stone will be left unturned. Trump has deployed battle-hardened lawyers. Some of these people actually were Trump's attorneys, personal attorneys representing him in his battle against the Democrat lunatics. And now, as Trump so succinctly put it, once upon a time he was the hunted. Now he's the hunter. And I don't want to hear, I do not care one bit about any of these Democrats' tears. For me, it ended with the raid at Mar-a-Lago, which incidentally, update on that today. Let me see if I've got this in my stack of stuff. I look at it. Hold on. Bear with me. I can't have it all up at one time. Kash Patel, apparently on Fox Business today, said that there was no factual predicate for the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago. So there was, this is a very technical thing, right? The basis for the original warrant was invalid. So the invasion of Trump's home was unlawful. And so that event in 2022, again, anchors, if you're going to talk about this as one giant conspiracy, RICO, right, case being built against the crazy Democrats, this particular point in time, this unlawful action that the Department of Justice took in cahoots with all of these various nefarious actors now brings them all up to date in terms of statute of limitations, ties it all to the jurisdiction of Florida, of South Florida. I mean, it's just bad all around. A reckoning is coming for the Democrats. It's not going to be comfortable. And by the way, in the midst of this, some Democrats continue to chirp. And I'm perplexed by this too. I can get to this after the break here. Gavin Newsom. If I were Gavin Newsom, I would have shame. Gavin Newsom doesn't have shame, so I can't say if I were Gavin Newsom. If I were Gavin Newsom, I would just leave and move to a monastery in Tibet But that's not what he's doing. He is out there. He is being very vocal. He is trying to make himself the standard bearer of the Democratic Party. He's enjoying some success with some Democrats, getting pushback from others, and at the same time, I think falling into some major problems and admissions that are going to come back and haunt him. And don't forget the level of corruption in the state of California, not just the fire aid stuff, but going back to earlier fires, the PG&E scandal, all of them. I mean, Gavin Newsom has so much liability. And the only thing the Trump people have to be careful of is not taking it too far. I bet you if they just looked a little bit at Gavin Newsom, they could find 3, 4, maybe 10 things that he could enjoy some prison time over. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
People are upset about this Cracker Barrel logo. Have you heard about this, Robbie? Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. The What's Right show is on. Cracker Barrel, the chain of stores that I don't really go to very often. It's a little too heavy for me, for my taste. But I like the general store. I like that little area, the candy and fun gifts. Anyway, Cracker Barrel has rebranded and the new logo sucks. And everybody's talking about this because it is reminiscent of other brands that have committed brand suicide by changing up their logos. And of course, some of it driven by woke CEOs. So people are plastering the CEO's picture all over the internet. And she's got the Rachel Maddow look. I don't mean to be unfair, but it's kind of those standard issue large glasses that come from deep feminine insecurity. You know, these women in business. Oh gosh, this is coming off so terrible, Robbie. These women in business. Whenever you see somebody in business that has giant, big, particularly when big, horn-rimmed glasses, it's like this armor that they put on. Look at me, I'm tough. Just be yourself. You don't have to intimidate anybody with your glasses. Just be you. But they're never just themselves. That's the problem. Okay, so Cracker Barrel may be going in. I give it maybe another 6 months. What? 6 months, Robbie, before they have to call Sydney Sweeney and pay her like $50 million to save the company? Could happen. Now, speaking of companies saving themselves, there's a little business called Bed Bath & Beyond. Growing up, in the 90s as a teen, Bed Bath & Beyond was a staple across America. They were everywhere, ran into financial trouble. They, I think, downsized to maybe 1 store or 2 stores. And now they're staging a comeback, and they hope to have quite a few stores by the time 2026 rolls around. I was just looking at their prospectus on this, what they were thinking. Well, I've lost it here, but anyway, they're looking to get back in business. Oh, here it is. They want to have, hold on, by 2026, they want to convert 75 stores by 2026. All right. Now they're in the news because, of course, their CEO has stated the obvious. The process of putting together a comeback, I don't see us going into California, he says, right? California is not where we want to be. Marcus Lemonis. It's too cost prohibitive to open big box retail stores in California. This is the clip that went viral.
We've made the decision to, as we start to open up stores again, we're planning on opening 300 over the next 24 months. we've made the decision to not open in the state of California. And while it was a big place for business in the past for Bed Bath & Beyond, when you look at the complexity, both on the real estate side, on the regulatory side, both on the product and the employee side, it's just too cost prohibitive to do it. And at some point, some business needs to take a stand and remind the state of California that while they keep reminding us that they're the fourth largest economy in the world, that's going to dissipate over time. So we are just going to serve those customers with our online business.
There it is. No stores for California. Now, all right, hear me out on this. I understand that it's seductive to respond to this if this is an attack on California. Right now, Gavin Newsom with his ridiculous little governor's media account is out there, shadow boxing against Trump and whoever else to reply. There is no reply here that is a good idea. Just isn't. Because the reply here was atrocious. It's absolutely terrible. We know that businesses, here is what Governor Newsom's press office response was today. Like most Americans, we thought Bed Bath & Beyond no longer existed. After their bankruptcy and closure of every store, we wish them well as they seek to become relevant again as they try to open a second store. The contempt the Democrats have for you is unbelievable. And when I say for you, did you ever shop at Bed Bath & Beyond? If you live in California, if you live in a blue jurisdiction, do you like going to stores? They're not even, forget any curiosity about how to fix it, how to roll out the red carpet for businesses, how to make LA, San Francisco, San Diego, Sacramento better places to live and to provide services for the citizens, stores. There's no acknowledgement here, because one of the things that really bothers me about this stupid account, beyond the fact that it's not funny, is that, of course, Newsom keeps touting that America's the world's fourth largest economy. It's all made up. It's a hocus pocus. Think about in the last 5 years, all the big companies that left California. McKesson, Charles Schwab, Oracle, Hewlett Packard, Palantir, this is the big, they do AI among other things, but Karp, their CEO, talked about California's monoculture. Yeah, data analytics, yeah, but they do a little bit of AI, Robbie. I think they're in that. But regardless, Palantir, yeah, they're gone. CBRE, the industrial real estate company. ACOM, construction company. Tesla, I think you've heard of that one. Ruiz Foods, food manufacturing. Chevron, Digital Realty Trust. It just goes on and on. There's been an absolute just abandonment of the state by big companies. Where's the snappy comeback to that, Mr. Gavin Newsom? Think of all the small businesses. Think about here in Las Vegas. Every time I blink, I see somebody new from California. Oh, what do you do? Well, I have a small business. I'm moving it here to Vegas. I closed it up in California, and I can live anywhere. I'm going to live here, and we're moving things gradually over to Nevada, and hopefully in about 2 years we'll be fully settled in Nevada and out of California. I hear that every week. What statistic behind it? I don't know. It's not insignificant. Chevron had roots in California going back to the 1870s, for Pete's sake. Think about this. But why would you have any business in California? The governor hates you. The governor just cares about padding his own pocket, the pocket of his cronies. And he would basically be perfectly fine if the drug-addled, lunatic, homeless people just took over your neighborhood. They don't want law enforcement. They want to tolerate criminality. I have a great story about San Francisco. You know, many years ago, I've said this before. I wanted to move there, and there was a building I couldn't afford. It was a Four Seasons high-rise there on Market Street. Could not afford it. The units were outrageous. But I looked at them, you know, just out of interest. And there was a penthouse in that building. One of the penthouses at the time, and this was in, I think, 2011, selling for like $20 million. Last year, a similar penthouse, same size, same floor, was on the market for $3.8 million. Down from a high of over 20, if you look at the Zillow thing. Why do you think that is? Gavin Newsom. Welcome, friends, to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. I know I sent this to you, Robbie, just a little bit earlier today, but I think that spouses, people, I'll put it this way, people who are looking to murder their spouses have been handed a great excuse for why their missing loved one can't be found. This story is nuts. A guy named Josimar Cabrera claimed that his missing wife, Shayla Gutierrez, was detained by ICE. The ICE people got her. They picked her up. They swooped her up, bundled her up, and she's somewhere either at Alligator Alcatraz or at CCOT down in El Salvador. Truth be told, a video emerged later of Mr. Cabrera toting a large bag with what appeared to be a body in it late at night out of the couple's apartment. He has since fled the country to his native Peru, where he was detained by local authorities. He's now going to be extradited. That's one of the self-deportations, Robbie, that we are not okay with. If you come here, you kill your wife, and then you look to go and flee the country. No. Come back, and we'll sort out your immigration status later. That's just absolutely wild. Okay. You know, by the way, the trolling, the stupid press office Twitter account that Newsom is doing, it's actually getting criticism now even from usual friendly libs. Morning Joe Scarborough, this morning laid into it. He is not impressed by this new tact that the governor, Gavin Newsom, is taking. Listen to what Scarborough's logic is on this.
See, the Democrats are trying to find their footing, and it's quite embarrassing, actually. I mean, Gavin Newsom, have you seen what he's doing online? And say, just take a deep breath. Yeah. Don't try to turn the ship 180 degrees and they don't know what to do. I have a good idea. Instead of trying to school Donald Trump, talk into the camera about affordability. Talk about making groceries more affordable. Talk about what you're going to do for housing. Talk about what you're going to do for energy prices that continue to go up. We heard the congressman yesterday talk about energy prices skyrocketing in New Jersey. Don't try. As I've been saying, Donald Trump's not on the ballot in 26. He's not on the ballot in 28. Why try to drag Muhammad Ali in the ring when you got Chuck Wepner standing right in front of you? And Wepner's a bleeder. He's a bleeder. You want him. So why are you going, I'm going after Donald? No, you're not. You're not running against Donald Trump.
Poor Chuck Wepner getting dragged like this. Look, folks, this is bad. He's right. By the way, I also think another part of the problem here for Newsom is, and I said this yesterday, I posted this, I think, on X. You know, the problem for Newsom is that it's this tough talking AI assisted, you know, slick advertising team that he has running this thing. And they're, you know, doing all this punchy stuff, and it's mostly not landing. Occasionally, maybe it is. I'll give that to them. Okay. But overall, it's too much. Now, people either like it, the people that do like it, okay? The people that do like it, when they see Gavin Newsom come out there and do a rally, get in a debate or an interview, let's say, and when Gavin Newsom isn't that person, okay, that this persona that is in these tweets, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to feel a certain amount of disappointment. They'll feel let down. And the people that think that it's gross and it's off-putting, we're going to laugh because Newsom's just going to look weak like he normally does. So this whole thing is backfiring. And that's why Scarborough had a message for Newsom that people want results and they don't want trolling. Get back to the substance, which, of course, Gavin Newsom is a little light on.
Like, you're trying to do everything to distract the American people from the fact that you're screwing up on job one. And job one is helping working Americans and helping the middle class afford their lives and build a life where their children are going to live better than them. That's the American dream. And you have done nothing but play politics over the past year and a half. It's really not that hard to do.
We'll see.
It's really not. Cut and paste. It's really not hard to do. And I would be telling the Republicans the same thing if Democrats were off over here. It's not hard, but I don't know why they, like Gavin Newsom, he wants to own Donald Trump. He wants to be Donald Trump light. You can't be Donald Trump light. Hey, Gavin, talk into the camera and talk about making life more affordable, not only for people in California, but if you want to talk about people in New Hampshire, our people in Iowa, our people in South Carolina, they would like to know how their lives can be more affordable. Not how you can own Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not running again. These Democrats, who I have called Chuck Wepner instead of Muhammad Ali, Chuck Wepners, they're the ones that are running again. They're the ones that are in the boxing ring with Democrats, not Donald Trump.
He feels very strongly about this. Now, what a lib doesn't understand, I think this is the problem for Scarborough to wrap his head around, is that Gavin Newsom's record in California ought to be disqualifying, like on its face, from seeking any employment anywhere. I mean, he could, I guess he could like run a demolition crew. Demolish things. I thought that was my favorite point of the interview when Lamanis, the CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond, was asked, Fox Business, he gets asked, talk to me about law enforcement. Now, here's the clip. This right here ought to be played again and again and again for anybody who thinks that Newsom and the Democrats out of California should be running anything.
How much does the lack of law enforcement in California or in the major cities where the rules regarding shoplifting, the no prosecution, how much does that factor in, not just to your decision, but also the cost of doing business? I'm sure you've crunched the numbers.
Well, it's not just that the law enforcement exists there. It's when you catch somebody that actually steals from you, the ability to actually prosecute them. And we have the same thing in downtown Chicago, where I just closed a business. We have these, I'll call them these democratic ideologies around how we're supposed to enforce the law. And when I was a kid, if I took a pack of gum, the police were there and my mom was coming. Today, you could take $1,000 of something and you're not going to be prosecuted. And to try to get insurance and to try to have people feel safe is just not something that we want to subject, our brand to, quite frankly.
Yeah, think about the cost, right? And I know Target today had a new CEO come in. Why? Well, the chain is struggling, and they have a lot of stores in California. They have a lot of stores in blue states, and they have always the CEO that just got canned always went on. Oh, it's factored in. Oh, we lose. We call it spillage or breakage or whatever. It's nothing. No big deal. Woke as a joke. You're telling me that right? I'm talking to every one of you out there listening right now. We together are paying for the thefts. Our prices on the shelves go up because of the stealing. Gavin Newsom, you've got MSNBC yelling at him. You want to talk about affordability. It's very basic. In a lawless society, cost goes up for the law-abiding in every way. Wealth deteriorates, costs go up. We lose stores. With fewer stores, less competition. With less competition, obviously prices go up. By the way, with theft, with crime, with needing to hire security, needing to lock things up on shelves, look at the CVSs that are just one by one shuttering. They're gone. And what happens? Well, you're forced to go to Amazon, right? Forced to buy online. Then people steal it from your doorstep. And they don't get prosecuted. So prices go up on Amazon. Then there's no competition. So then Amazon can jack up prices. Not because Amazon's a greedy, horrible company, because Bezos is a capitalist. And I've always maintained, by the way, I've been saying this for years, that the reason why Bezos has, for many, many years, supported wackadoodle libs is because it's good for Amazon. When the local bodega, when the bricks and mortar store closes because of high crime, because of George Soros DAs not prosecuting crime, then Amazon's purchases and economic cycles improve. It's so obvious. It's common sense. We need to get back to making criminals afraid again. And that includes criminal people who broke the law and coming to the country. I'm seeing a lot of videos of little Mexican guy yelling in Spanish, la migra, whatever, and he was running and he gets tackled by 8 DHS burly masked fascists. And I'm looking at this, and can I just confess something? I'm loving it. I'm loving it. This is what I voted for. Finally, the lawless are afraid. Finally, we have some respect for the law. Finally, the police are out there, and they do not give a rip about what anybody thinks of them. You just got these hysterical, cat ladies out there with bullhorns yelling, fascist, fascist, Nazi. These guys just cool as cucumbers, keep doing what they're doing. The pendulum went too far, folks. And the very people who took the pendulum, who just took it way out there to left field, just out there those people now are in the fray as the leading voices of the Democratic Party. No wonder the Democratic Party has lost a record number of voter registrations over the last 4 years. I think that will only continue to get worse. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in a moment. Here it is, the news report on the missing woman who her husband claimed had been taken by ICE, but then a plot twist. Listen to ABC 7 this morning.
Troubling surveillance video shows suspected killer Josemar Cabrera passing his neighbor's Ring camera as he pulls a large object wrapped in fabric.
He's dragging some kind of a blanket with something inside. Probably he had the body in there. That's what I'm thinking.
An unsettling conclusion for Mario Sanchez, the Lancaster neighbor who captured the footage, sharing what he knew about Cabrera and his 33-year-old wife, Shayla Gutierrez, who was found dead in the Angeles National Forest 3 days ago.
I never had any interaction with the husband. He always seems like mad all the time. But with the wife, she was pretty nice.
Well, crazy. Sam Mirejovsky here, by the way. What's Right show, powered by Sam and Ash Injury Law. So, this is going to be the new excuse. Whoa, my wife was taken by ICE. This is terrible. Well, hopefully. I don't know. It's California, so he may be out, out on the streets tomorrow. Okay. Look, I'm gonna get to it all. I don't know where the 2 hours went. Robbie, we need 3 hours to cover just some of what we intend to get at. It's absolutely just plain old running out of time here. That's the rub. So, okay. The Democratic Party, folks, I just was saying this, how it's gone full tilt to the left. How Gavin Newsom, after his brief listening tour on his podcast, I'm going to reach out to conservatives. And people like Charlie Kirk, love Charlie Kirk. Sorry, you should not have sat down with Gavin Newsom. After that ended, now just pivoting to becoming this like radical leftist. There's an interesting conversation that happened yesterday. Benny Johnson was interviewing Chris Cuomo. And Cuomo talks about, remember, Cuomo is the brother of a former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, now a candidate for the mayoral race, and of course, the son of Mario Cuomo, very powerful Democratic governor, one-time governor of the state of New York, big Democrats. Now, Cuomo, Chris Cuomo, Fredo, as some called him, Fredo Cuomo's talking some sense here about the Democratic Party of yesteryear compared to the Democratic Party today. I think what he says here is compelling.
So my father's party is no more. Socialism, he believed that the opportunity to be part of a free market was exactly why his parents, illiterate, unsophisticated, untrained, except with a heart, 3 sizes too big, filled with ambition and dreams, to come to be able to compete. Without some feudal system on your head in rural Italy where they were telling you who you could be and how you could be, was worth everything. The idea of going to socialism, not socialistic, yes, public education, yes, entitlements, yes, there are socialistic aspects to our constitutional republic within a capitalistic model that work. They work for the collective. That's what we do. But it's a capitalistic society. No Democrat ever argued for anything else. No Democrat would have argued for open borders. None of this. My father would have done none of this. And why? Because those were the ideals of the party. Now it's different.
The party's Democrats have just are committing political suicide. And by the way, if any of the stuff that they did worked, I mean, we knew it wasn't going to work. We know it doesn't work. But if any of it had worked by some crazy miracle, well, then that's one thing. But it didn't. It hasn't. It's brought blight and filth. It's destroyed cities. And getting back to this, I'm you see all these liberal reporters talking about, Vegas is going under. Oh, Vegas. And Vegas is doing a metric S-ton better, thank you very much, than San Francisco, LA, San Diego put together compared to where those cities once were, where they ought to be, were it not for crazy Democratic policies, right? So that's the state of things. I have to look at this. It's just it is. It's absolutely crazy. And by the way, a lot of disenchanted people out there. Chuck Todd on the Chuck Todd Cast, which I guess is his new podcast now that he's out on his own, thinks that Trump is sucking the joy out of politics. This was good. I'm playing it for you simply for the comedic relief that is Chuck Todd.
I miss the joy of it. I used to say that, Hubert Humphrey's memoir was called The Politics of Joy. And I always loved that, which is, hey, look, I still enjoy it. Unfortunately now, the way Trump practices it, it has made it less joyful, right? It has just sucked the joy out of it, both left and right in different ways. And, try having a light moment in a political show and it's like, you're not being serious or it has become what used to be really easy to sort of have some levity in a political discussion. It's been really hard in the Trump era. Look at political comedians. They have a hard time.
What? Conservatives we're having a blast. What's Chuck Todd talking about? We're having the time of our lives. We can say words that we couldn't say before. We're being funny. It's the left that sucked the joy out of anything and everything, not just political, but life itself. You couldn't even you can't joke about anything with leftists. They're completely humorless. And Trump himself is a funny guy. Newsom isn't funny. Now, some libs are, but those are the ones that are starting to turn their backs on the Democratic Party orthodoxy. Those are the voices of reason within the Democratic Party. Boy, the people have it all wrong. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, folks.